Yeah, you were the only one I couldn't hear on the phone the other day. I'm like, what's he saying?
I call the City of Riverbank Special City Council meeting to order. Today is July 8th, 2014. It is 5:30. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Janine Tucker.
Here.
Councilmember Leanne Jones-Cruz. Here. Councilmember Darlene Barbara Martinez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cal Campbell.
Here.
Mayor Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. Conflict of interest. Any council member and staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered are to declare their conflict. Seeing none, public business from the floor. No action can be taken pursuant to government code. In reference of special meeting, the public has the opportunity to address the city council only on items appearing on this special meeting notice. Individual comments are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Seeing no public comment, will continue on to item 2, consistent of item 2.1, closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision Bravo of Government Code 54956.9, one potential case. At this, we go adjourn to closed session.
That's running. The second most common system is what's called by districts. This is what Modesto switched to, where you divide the city up into districts, and each voter in a given district only votes for that one seat. So it means you're only voting for one member of the council, but there are a lot fewer people voting in that election, so your influence with that one elected official is much higher. The third system, which is much more rare, is what's called from district, where you draw districts and the council member or the candidates need to be from the given district, but the election is still at large. This is what Modesto had beforehand, or actually no, they had posts, but this is what some jurisdictions have, where you'll see the individual seats on the ballot separately, even though all the voters see all the seats. This has often been kind of an esoteric academic question. Jurisdictions would change every few decades. We have one or two in California that change. But the California Voting Rights Act, which has gotten a lot of press locally, passed in 2002, really took effect after the Court of Appeals put it in 2006. And that has brought this question to the fore. And we've actually seen I think we're at about 90 school districts have switched from at-large or from district to by districts. We've had about 20 or so community college districts switch. And I think we're getting close to about 10 cities switching so far. I think in about 12 months that number will have doubled at least. We tend to see waves as the plaintiff's attorneys focus on different groups of jurisdictions. So this has become a much more common debate. And it's no surprise, especially given the local activism of groups bringing this question to the fore, that Riverbank and all the other cities in this county are facing this question. Each system has its pros and cons. Usually when I finish this presentation, someone says, well, what's best for us? And I say, that's for you to answer. As one who studies this both academically and in our day-to-day practical work, I can lay out a lot of the differences. The at-large system, you keep a citywide focus. Both the campaigns and the council activity tends to be focused on what's happening citywide, what's happening downtown, big economic development questions. Although, as I'm sure you know, not exclusively. Local issues certainly come up. In a by-district system, it tends to be much more focused on the particular issues of the neighborhoods. Often downtowns or citywide initiatives will struggle to get attention and get support. There are ways of dealing with that. Pasadena is the classic example we talk about where they had a big downtown project. If you know Pasadena, there's Old Town that was a rundown mess, and now it's one of the premier shopping tourist areas in LA County. And what they did when they went to districts is they made sure that each council district touched Old Town. Made a little bit of a funny map, but it gave each council member a stake in one block each of Old Town. So there are different policy issues and ways you can draw the lines to adapt to the local concerns and local issues that you have in a given area. When we worked in Madera, Madera's in the middle of a 25-year master plan to overcome the perception of across the tracks, the east versus west. And so they actually asked specifically, don't use the tracks as a district border because they were working so hard to overcome that as a border. Don't perpetuate it. So all these local concerns can play in and do influence how the local politics play out after the system is chosen. What often drives this is demographics. When we see jurisdictions switch, in particular before the California law, the California Voting Rights Act took effect, two things would drive the switch from at-large to district elections. One was simply size. When a city got to about 250 to 275,000 people, this question always came up. Some of them postponed the question. Modesto is a classic example of this. In 2001, they hit about 250 or so thousand. They looked at it, they voted it down. Maybe it wasn't 2001, whenever it first came on the ballot there. They kept growing, and often jurisdictions start thinking about it then and will switch when they hit 300,000 or so. But the big cities almost all have some version of districts. The other thing that prompts it is a rapid growth in Latino population. I suspect that when I give this talk in 10 years, I'll be saying rapid growth in Latino or Asian American population. We're starting to get Asian Americans in the numbers that Latinos were in 20 years ago. And with that rapidly growing population comes a desire for a voice. We saw this in Hanford, Watsonville, all over the place where they switched to district elections to help get a Latino voice on the council, even before the California Voting Rights Act was law. So what we see in California, especially among cities, is the big cities have some version of districts, and then cities that saw a very rapid growth in Latino population, even some of them small at 15 and 20,000 people, would switch systems. Here in Riverbank, your overall demographics, just the big picture, are kind of the classic case that we see this question come up in. It's in total population, according to the census numbers, you're majority Latino. But among citizens of voting age, what the courts look at is the definition of eligible voters, people who are citizens and 18. You're still plurality, non-Hispanic white. So that is the demographic mix that we often see this question in this discussion come up in, and the talk about would it make sense to go to a by-district system to give a voice to that growing population. If you decide to make the change, it is a process. It starts with direction to begin the process, and we'll work out a schedule and request that the council give us criteria that we should look at as we're drawing the lines. One of the things that gets lost a lot is when we talk about lawsuits around this issue is a focus in the lawsuits on race. And it's interesting because the laws, the federal and California Voting Rights Act, obviously focus on race. But at the same time, race cannot be what the courts have called the predominant factor in how you draw the lines. So while it may drive whether or not you go to districts, it cannot drive the specific lines. I can't put a map of your city by city Latinos on the screen and then draw a line around them. The courts have said just outright using only race is just as illegal as discriminatory actions on the other side. So if you give direction to go to districts, when we actually go to draw lines, it is about neighborhoods. It is about communities of interest, what we talk about, which could be anything. There are a lot of academics desperate to become famous as coming up with a court-approved definition of community of interest. But still the prevailing definition is whatever the people in a given neighborhood define as their neighborhood is their neighborhood. So we see it as based around elementary schools. We see it based around middle schools. We see it based around parks. Often master plan communities or neighborhoods that are built about the same time define themselves as a community of interest. It really boils down to whatever ties a neighborhood together is what matters. and we want to keep those neighborhoods together. Now, if they're what we call a protected class neighborhood, Latino, heavily Latino, heavily African American, or heavily Asian American, you have to keep the neighborhood together. Dividing it in a way that dilutes their voting power is illegal. But really, what we tell our clients to focus on is trying to avoid dividing any neighborhoods, because they all matter, and that's really what drawing the lines is about. And that is also where your direction and the public's input matters the most. I'm a demographer, I'm an expert in the process, I know the computer tools, I have all the great numbers, but I don't know your neighborhoods. So the usual process is that we would come up with some draft plans, 2 or 3 or 4 draft plans to get the discussion going. Sometimes we hit it on the head. Everyone comes in and says, your plan 1 is insane, but plan 2 is brilliant. Go with that. 80% of the time, it's like, well, plan 2 is good, but can you move this line? Plan 3 is good, but it messes up this neighborhood. And that's the discussion we want to have and the input we want to get. And I always say, we'll take a masterfully done computer map of a plan that someone from the public wants to submit. We'll take a map on the back of a napkin. Whatever the public wants to submit, we're happy to accept, and we will take into our computers and get into the maps and accommodate to the greatest degree we can. So the process does, in fact, require public input. That you have to give direction to start it, adopt criteria, then we'll draft some plans, bring those back and present them. I should add at that criteria meeting, too, I'll walk through a detailed demographic presentation showing the big picture numbers I talked about and some much more detailed numbers, and with maps of where the different demographic groups are concentrated in the city that people can work from if they want to draft their own plans and submit them. And then you have to hold public hearings. You can give direction as many times as you want, send things back. One thing we hear a lot is, well, we like the north part of Plan A and the south part of Plan C. Can you put those 2 together in a map? And a lot of times the answer is yes. That is kind of what we're looking for. And I often say, when we come in with our drafts, if we're not told one of the drafts was crazy, then we didn't do a good job of presenting the options to you. Because our goal is not to show you what you have to do, it's to show you what's possible and what happens when you make different choices. But I do definitely want to emphasize that this is a public process. If you do decide to make the change, community input is very important. Jurisdictions ask me, we can do utility mailers, we can mail to all the households, how to get the word out. Really, it boils down to word of mouth, especially in a small community like Riverbank, and media coverage. Getting a newspaper or whatever your main source of local news is, that will drive much more participation than any expenditure of city funds or mailings and things like that ever generates. And the number of hearings is up to you. I think you have to hold 2 formal hearings, or at least 1 formal hearing and then adoption. It's a usual ordinance process, and then calling an election. But we've had jurisdictions hold, the record was 23 public hearings that I've been involved in, 23 community forums. Just a caution, though, that 23rd community forum that Pasadena Unified held, over half the comments were that they didn't do enough public outreach. So you can never win. You can never make everybody happy with your public outreach, but somewhere between 2 and 23 is much closer to 2 is the usual number. So that is a brief presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, to talk through the details. The other piece I was going to add, just from the legal perspective, the one big thing that the bi-district system offers that others don't is a safe harbor from the California Voting Rights Act. So both the at-large and the from-district systems can be sued under the law. If you're in districts currently, you can't be sued under the California law. Federal law governs how those lines are drawn and make sure that you do equal population and comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And we take a very cautious approach with that. We really warn our clients away from any risks of litigation. And I always say, someday this will end, but not only have none of the plans that we've recommended and had our clients have adopted ever lost a challenge, we've actually never been sued in court, because like I say, someday that will end, because it doesn't take much to sue these days, but we really do try to play it safe and not take any risks on that front and give you options that you can consider that are legally sound.
Thank you. Any comment from?
I appreciate all your information, and I feel pretty strongly that we need to make sure we do what's right for Riverbank, and I think I'm tending to lean towards going the district route. I think the writing's on the wall, and I think it might be prudent for us to take a look at that.
I agree. It's what's needed for our council and our city.
I agree as well. Without any elaboration or glorification, I really strongly believe that we need to go to districts, and that's what is doing the right thing for our city.
Likewise, I agree with my colleagues here. Without going into much ado about it, it's the best thing what we can do right now for the city, and I wholeheartedly support going into districts.
So it's unanimous that we'll proceed going into districts. Be creative in your recommendations. The first time I ever heard of the east-west was the dividing of the tracks. That was the first I've heard about it about a month ago. I'd like to see if we can avoid that. But whatever the voting, the demographics prove. But be creative, and then I guess we have to do a formal resolution coming on up in the next meeting.
Yes, Mayor, City Council, we will bring back to you a resolution to identify findings and to proceed with the next level of analysis, and then that would authorize the work to be done, and then at some point in the future, the maps that were referred to by Mr. Johnson would be brought back to the council, and we can talk about the public hearing process, and if you wanted to do a town hall, some workshops, to be able to get some public input.
Okay, the deadline for us to get into some type of a conclusion is time enough to get it on the 2015 ballot. So we have to work backwards to our drop dead date.
And that date would be sometime early next summer. So we do have time to proceed, but I think we want to get that done sooner rather than later, so we do not come up against that deadline.
Okay, thank you. I normally don't ask for public comment, but I'm asking for public comment just on the presentation if you desire.
Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Maggie Mejia. I am the president of the Latino Community Roundtable of Stanislaus County. We are the organization that sent you the letter, and I want to thank you for moving forward. From the very beginning, I have said repeatedly, we're not going to sue anyone that says no. That's not us. We brought it to your attention because we wanted to avoid any lawsuits from anyone from the outside. And so thank you, and we are here to help you in any way that we can. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen from the council and the staff. My name is Ramon Bermudez from Riverbank, and I thank you for having this presentation available, and I'm hoping that the so-called draft plans, options, and different details that takes to do this is sooner than a year from now, because this is very important for elections that are coming over. There might not be others until 4 years from now, or it might be 2 years from now, and it's not going to be included. So how about putting a deadline of 31st of October, and then that we're including in these elections coming up by district rather than until 2015. I know it's a little bit too soon to be saying things, but this should have been in preparation from 2 years ago. The other thing is, I don't know who that gentleman was hired by, and some information, if there is availability for that, and how they come about to see that this study that he made, this presentation that he made, was paid by. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Proceeding, public comment. No action can be taken at this time. Members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name, the city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. Do I have any public comments?
Again, good evening. Ramon Bermudez from Riverbank, California. There's three matters that brings me here for these 5 minutes or so. One is on requesting from the City Council, from the mayor, and from the staff, to have a representative as a spokesperson for the elderly here. The senior club, as you know, that we have, well, it's not really a club, but it's a senior meals that we have on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. The community center holds somewhere between 28 and 32 people. There is some that come sometimes, and there's some others that don't. And so it varies on the persons, let's say between 8 and 10, that they kind of exchange the days or something, but usually 28, 32 people. On Fridays, we've been having from January the Friday brunch for the elderly also. I mean, sometimes about 24 to 26 people, as many as 18. Sometimes we get 18 to 20. But then between this, there is no representative in any committee of any kind for us to have somebody in the city council meeting when a few weeks ago you named different committees for different departments, but you did not refer to any committee for somebody to represent the elderly here, the seniors, the old age people, whatever you want to call us, but we don't have a representative. So it will be very much appreciated if the city council and the mayor get into this, the sooner the better. And also, there are some streets that don't have names yet. They don't have the sign, so they have no name. We have a very interesting entrance from Oakdale Road to some housing to be developed. And it's Oakdale Road, which is not a nameplate in there, and Novi. In Spanish, Novi it means I didn't see. Well, it's Novi, it's okay to name it that way because I didn't see the sign, no vi el signo, el rótulo. And there are some others that I had requested when I brought a long list a few months ago, somewhere around September. And there were a lot of signs put up. I counted about 33 that weren't there, or they were erased. You couldn't read what they say. 3 stop signs that were put up. And I requested at that time, that's a few months ago, for the people who work Department of Works, Public Works, on their way to work, on their way home, their way shopping, their way to have recreation, wherever they're going in Riverbank. Write down a name or the corner where you have an idea what's the name of that, because in the next block there is a sign. In the next corner maybe there's a sign that names the street or the avenue or the whatever it may be, drive, road. And it wasn't done because it seems like to me like I'm the only one who is bringing this and they get bothered by it. Well, don't get bothered by it. Don't take it personally. I just would like for a better community to be better looking. And those signs guide people who come from outside of Riverbank and some of us in Riverbank, that even though we've been many years here, we don't know the name of the street when we go by that corner. We're looking for somewhere and you get lost or disoriented. If there is one of them is close to that part or that area or that housing, that there is other signs or streets that are run down, they're erased, they're wrecked. So we really appreciate if you do something about it. Third item is an alley that is in the corner where we have Jackson coming out on Parsley Alley, ends up on this on 108 behind what is now Carl's Jr. And I had called it for a cleaning up. They did a halfway job. They're really sloppy because they left the weeds in there. And of course, 2 or 3 days later, there was some trash being picked up by those weeds in there being held up there. And it looked horrible within the week. I don't know if they're supposed to do it every month or every 2 weeks or whatever it is, but it's not done. whatever the time is supposed to be done. And now that they have renewed certain streets and alleys and avenues in Riverbank, it looks real pretty, real nice. Congratulations. But that one has been left over to the side. The businesses in there don't look too good from the alley. Carl's Jr. looks real pretty from the front, but not from the back. It will be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Any further public comment? I'll be there next week.
Yes, you will. Good evening, council members and Mayor O'Brien. My name is Vicki Holt, and I'm the branch manager at the Riverbank Library. Storytime is off for the month of July, but there are many more activities happening in July that I want to tell you about. Mayor O'Brien will be at the library this coming Monday on the 14th at 11 a.m. to read to the children and their families. We really appreciate you doing that. The summer reading program continues until August 2nd. Young children, tweens, teens, and adults are encouraged to read and win prizes at the library. The summer reading theme for the kids is called Fizz Boom Read. So we're having a mad science party at the library on Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 16th at 3:30. There will be hands-on science experiments and activities for the kids. The book club is reading Still Alice by Lisa Genova. The book club meeting is on July 22nd, which is a Tuesday at 4 p.m. So if you need a copy of the book, swing by the library and pick up one. Batman is turning 75 years old this month. So we're celebrating by making a Batman mask on Saturday, July 26th at 1 p.m. And then the kids are invited to find the Batman. We're going to have a figurine hidden in the children's area of the library. And once they find it, I think we might even come up with some riddles for them. But once they find the Batman, they could come for some prizes. And then we're going to have a craft for adults and teens. We're going to make a handmade journal. And that's on Wednesday, July 30th at 4 p.m. All these programs at the library are free to the public. It's due to the 1/8 of a cent dedicated sales tax that all this is available at the library. Please stop by and visit. You're welcome anytime. Okay.
Very much.
See you next week.
Yes, you will. Come on up. I've been waiting for you.
Good evening, council and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Debbie Scholes, Riverbank, and Betsy and I are representing Oakdale Shelter Pet Alliance this evening. We have some things we wanted to update you on, and as well as an exciting announcement. Tomorrow morning at 6:30, we will be meeting the shuttle right outside here, the Axe Bay Neuter Clinic shuttle, celebrating our 1,000th pet that we are, which is either getting spayed or neutered tomorrow. And we're going to have a little celebration there. This translates into 1,000 spay neuters translates into literally thousands of unwanted, unplanned litters not born in the Riverbank or Oakdale community, which tend to end up in the shelter. So we're real excited about that. Another thing we're excited about is we recently were awarded a $2,000 grant to go toward spaying and neutering 50 small short-haired dogs. We're intending to try to help out the Chihuahua population or Chihuahua mixes, many of whom are in the shelter, and they tend to be harder to adopt out because the population is so big. So we are real excited about that. We have our major fundraiser coming up. This year it's going to be a Strut Your Mutt campaign, and we will be kicking that off with You've Been Littered next week. So be on the lookout for that. Not that we're pointing any fingers at anybody here this evening, but our fundraising is how we majorly support the spay-neuter voucher program, as well as all the other efforts we make for the homeless pets. And Betsy Corwin, our president, is going to explain in more detail about that.
The littering campaign, just to piggyback a little, or add a little bit to that, local politicians are a real favorite to be littered. I just thought I'd throw that out. Strut Your Mutt, we did that the first time last year. We signed up at the last minute. Our group is now a No More Homeless Pets network partner for Best Friends Animal Society, the big rescue organization and animal advocacy group, I can't even say it, in Utah. So we joined and we raised about $8,000 at kind of the last minute. And we wanted to do it again, and we are doing it again. Last year we had about 17 participants. About three-quarters of them actually went over to Treasure Island in San Francisco and walked with us and got poured down, rained on. This year we have about 30 participants. Debbie is one of our team members. I'm a team member. Norma, and I think your husband also is a team member. We could use more team members and participants from the Riverbank community. We can have as many team members as we want. So I have a little flyer I'm going to leave back there and some postcards and whatnot for anyone who's interested. So this is going to be our major fundraiser this year. You don't even have to go there to support us. You can go to the link we have here and just donate to either the team or a particular person who's a participant. You can be a participant and not even physically walk. You can be what's called a virtual participant. And if you have friends and family that want to share your love of the animals and want to help our group raise more money for our projects, you can sign up, and all the proceeds come directly to our group, even though it's under the auspices of the Best Friends Animal Society. So we're hoping to raise at least $15,000, which is double what we did last year. And the low-cost spay-neuter program, which is now just growing and growing, is our primary project for this coming year. We also have been doing subsidized adoption specials, which try and get more adoptions for the lower cost. And then the special needs issues with pets that need grooming and some medical treatment, and we support that as well, amongst other things. So I'll leave this little flyer at the back along with a few little postcards and handouts for anyone who might like to take them on their way out. Any questions?
Very much. You made it just at 5 minutes. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll go bring it to item 3, consent calendar. Consistent of item 3A, waive readings. Item 3B, 2014 local agency biennial notice to City Council to amend the City of Riverbank Conflict of Interest Code for the agency positions. Do I have anyone wishing to pull any of the items or discuss any items individually? Do I have anyone from the public wishing to pull any of the items or speak of them individually? Seeing none, I bring it back to the council for consideration.
I make a motion that we approve our consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second for the consent calendar.
Council Authority Member Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Council Authority Member Jones Cruz.
Yes.
Council Authority Member Tucker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Campbell.
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 4.1, second reading by title only and adoption of ordinance number 2014-006 of the City Council of the City of Riverbank, California, amending Title 15 Land Usage Chapter 153, zoning by amending sections Section 153.10 and 153.011, and adding new sections 153.066 through 153.072 of the City of Riverbank Code of Ordinances.
Mayor, members of the City Council, before we get started on this, I'd like to have our City Attorney, Tom Hallinan, discuss an issue in regards to whether or not there's a conflict in regards to this issue and members of the City Council.
Yes, you know, at the last meeting, I advised Councilmember Barb Martinez to step down because Ms. Halbert claimed she had a conflict. I spoke with a partner in my office, a former lead attorney for the Fair Political Practices Commission about this matter, and we've determined that there is no conflict. There may be one at a future date when you specifically make mixed-use zones, but at this point, it's our opinion that there is no conflict, and I can go through that in detail if anybody wants. But that's the sum of our analysis. So, you know, we took the conservative route last week, but again, I believe that there's no conflict at this time, and Councilmember Barbara Martinez can participate for the second reading.
Thank you.
And Mayor and members of the City Council, as you mentioned, this is the second reading. A full staff report was given at the last City Council meeting. For members of the public that were not a part of that, this is basically adding language to the zoning code consistent with the general plan. No properties are actually being rezoned by this action. It is just adding the language to the code, again, consistent with the general plan and consistent with the strategic plan objective that was established in March. We do anticipate at some point in the future that there will need to be a rezoning, but that is not what is happening this evening, and I'd be happy to address any questions with the assistance of the attorney this evening.
Questions? We have none. Okay. Put it out to the public to have any comments on items 4.1.
For the record, you did receive the packets. Okay. This, if you look at the map, if you look at the properties and stuff involved, part of CEQA is environmental justice, and you're dumping the entire mixed use downtown without giving us a voice, without giving us a notification. I have asked and asked. I have spent hours in city clerk's office going through big old thick files so I could find their notice myself. It's not there, and it won't be there because they never gave us one. Not even with the general plan, because we weren't going to be mixed use. We're not going to disrupt and divide our existing neighborhoods. Language or not, it's in there. You'll put it in there, it opens the door. 50-foot, 4-story buildings are not compatible with downtown. They should be compatible with what we have, not the other way around. And as you can see on the packets that I gave you, initial study showed no conflict, insignificant, because they didn't include that map. When the Planning Commission voted, they got a map. Then they included the list of properties. Most of those properties are homes, not commercial. They're homes, they're families, they're people, they're voters. You should remember that.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I bring it back to the City Council for recommendation. Item 4.1.
We're just accepting the second reading, is that what we're doing?
Now, right now, we are approving the
Adoption, yes.
the adoption of the changes.
Of adding the language.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve item 4.1, adding the language.
I second it.
We have a motion to approve item 4.1 and a second.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.1, resolution adopting the proposed building permit fees for solar photovoltaic power systems relative to permit fees mandated by the state of California.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, you may recall that we put in some general language allowing for this a couple of meetings ago. At this time, I'd like our Director of Finance, Maricela Garcia, to provide an overview of the fee structure that is being proposed at this time.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight we have for you the proposed building permit fees in relation to the solar and photovoltaic power systems. Our purpose tonight is to adopt these building permit fees pursuant to the new section that was added to our Riverbank Code of Ordinances, which is Section 150.16. Subsection B gives us the authority to assess these fees. Our intent is to standardize our building permit fees for smaller photovoltaic installations. The current fees are based on the value of the system, and this is a method that's not allowed by the state government code. This will also allow the city to collect the necessary fees for the permitting and inspection process, which is consistent with the fees that have been established by the state. And so our proposed fees, we have two sets of fees, one for residential, and so the first is a residential roof-mounted system, and we have established a base cost of $500, and anything over 16 kilowatts has an additional fee of $15 per kilowatt for its permit. The residential ground-mounted systems have a similar fee structure in that there is a base cost for the first 15 kilowatts. Anything over and above that has an additional $15 fee. I will make note that these are one-time building permit fees. These are not ongoing fees that are assessed to a homeowner. This is just strictly a building permit fee for the inspections. We are also proposing tonight commercial fees, and so these are the fees that have been established by the state of California for the roof-mounted systems. Also have a base cost based on the type of kilowatts that it can handle, and an additional amount for anything over 51 kilowatts. And then we have a similar fee structure for ground-mounted systems as well on the commercial side. And so as you know, the higher the kilowatts, the less the fee becomes per kilowatt. That's because of the added advantage that they will be producing more energy than they will be using, and they'll be able to sell back. And so they do give that advantage to them. These proposed fees do not include any building permit fees that are associated with an accessory structure. So if there's any building or fences that must be constructed around these structures, those would have a separate permit fee based on the type of accessory structure that's being requested. And there would be additional plan check fees from other agencies such as fire that would also apply. And so our recommendation tonight is that you consider adopting this resolution regarding the proposed building permit fees for our solar and photovoltaic systems, and they would be consistent with the permit fees established by the state of California.
Any questions of Maricela?
I just want to say I'm glad that the last sentence, permit fees established by the state of California, because I had a question, were we consistent with other cities or in compliance? So I'm glad that that sentence is there. It clarifies my question. Thank you.
I have a question. Why does it have to go up for each kilowatt?
That's just the fee structure that they've set at the state, and so based on obviously the size, the more kilowatts, the bigger the panels usually tend to be, and so.
More panels is what you're saying.
Correct.
So it's more costly to do the inspection.
Correct.
Okay.
Why is a 50 kilowatt commercial system $8,000, but a 50 kilowatt residential was $1,025?
It tends to be a lot with the type of conduit that's used on a commercial system versus what's used on a residential. So a lot of it has to do with that particular item and making sure that it's the proper conduit that's being used for the system. That was the biggest
You
difference.
came
I
up
learned.
with that off the fly. I'll tell you what, the conduit is the conduit.
But that was one of the reasons that they gave me. That's an
Okay.
additional fee that's charged by fire, is that plan check fee for the conduit specifically.
All right, okay, I'll buy that. Even if I have a microinverter system instead of a regular inverter system.
You're using different conduit for commercial and
Now it's my understanding, and it's a different plan check system that's used.
that doesn't make sense.
Well, I had one more question. If we were at the point where there was an interest for like a solar farm, you know, a big, huge project, would we be able to accommodate that with those fees, or no?
They would be consistent with what the state has issued, so we would base it off of this current fee system.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? This is a public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to make comments on the fee structure based on the state of, mandated by the state of California? Seeing no comment, I bring it back for a recommendation.
I'll make a motion that we go with the fee structure as presented to the council.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 5.1 and a second.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.2, resolution to approve fees and fee waivers for facility rentals.
Yes, Mayor and members of the City Council, this is the continuation of a discussion that was started earlier this year in regards to facility fee rentals and potential waivers. A couple of meetings ago, we provided direction to staff in terms of what you wanted to see in our fee structure for our city facilities, and so at this time we are presenting to you a fee structure that is consistent with that direction, and I'd like Ms. Sue Fitzpatrick to provide the staff report.
Mayor and members of the council, at the June 10th meeting, as Joe mentioned, staff was given direction to raise the fees for the facility rentals for the community and extend the current fee waivers that are in place for our service clubs. Also, there was authorization given to provide $5,000 from the general fund to supplement the enterprise fund in order to offset those waivers. So just as a quick background, the facility rental fees have been established for the two facilities that we're speaking of, the community center and the Scout Hall building. And what the issue was that we brought to council was there wasn't enough fees collected to offset the operation and maintenance of those buildings, so we needed to provide some adjustment. And that was because we hadn't raised fees for a number of years, and also we had granted quite a few waivers, which were needed for service clubs. So the current fee schedule that we're operating on now, just as a quick review, is set at the community center being for non-residents a little bit higher, $1,000 for the rental, and that is inclusive for all the services. A resident would pay a little bit less, $900, and the service club amount that we had established was $350. Scout Hall, same type of idea, but less because it's a smaller building. The standard meeting fee was $25. The actual amount that has been collected is the non-residents are paying the full amount, the residents are paying the full amount, and service clubs over a period of waivers granted are paying anywhere from $0 to $60 for the event, in opposed to the $350. So that's where we wanted to make some of the adjustments. So at the June 10th meeting, we presented 4 options to council, and option number 3, which is this one on the slide, was chosen. And that was to, as I mentioned, raise the fees for the general community, extend the current fee waiver, and supplement the general fund. So this is what the fees would look like with the increase. It's a $200 increase. Non-residents, again, will pay a little bit more. Residents will pay $1,100. And the service club With the current fee waiver, we'll still pay what they're used to paying, so there will be nothing different, and that includes the food program for the seniors. That's all accounted for. And then any new events that come in, say another service club wants an event, or one of the current service clubs wants another event, we would have to come to council and get that approved and get the money allocated for that from the general fund as well. So the meeting fee, we raised a little bit too, to $50. Again, the service clubs used to having meetings in our facilities. There will be no difference. But any new ones will have a $25 reduced rate. So tonight, the resolution presented is just to confirm City Council direction that was given. The fees have been public noticed as required. The new fees, if approved tonight, will be implemented as of August 1st. And $5,000 has been allocated to the fiscal year budget to offset some of those fee waivers. Any questions or comments?
Does this bring us in line with what's going on in existing cities and communities in our area more?
We're still much lower.
Good.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people telling us that. Like I said, the other facilities are brand new, very nice, but people seem to be satisfied with our building, and hopefully with the architect project coming up, we can figure out a way to make our facilities even better, with a new floor and just some, aesthetic improvements over the next couple years.
Can you go back, I'm sorry,
Oh, I can
two
do that.
slides? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The one right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? This is a public hearing. Are there any comments from the public?
Good evening. Again, Ramon Bermudez from Riverbank. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to, if I could put an award, it would be for the Personal Recreation Department of the City of Riverbank. And it will be because of the waivers that you have been so kind of giving for the last few years for the use of the seniors at the community center. A lot of people might not realize this, but when you have 30 people in the average meeting 3 times a week, and now about 30 people 4 times a week, and you don't get charged for it because you're a senior, I think that's very dignified of you as a committee that you have, as a recreation department of the City of Riverbank. And you should be very proud as members of the council that give some dignity to the seniors. Mr. Mayor, I saw you sometime or another trying to come over for some volunteer work, and then maybe you got sidetracked onto something else like reading at the library and things like that. It's very laudable of you. And so that's what brings me here today, and thanking Sue Fitzpatrick, thanking Kerry, and all the personnel that they have at the Department of Public Works and Recreation. The Recreation Department does also a beautiful job at the parks. We're talking about maybe 10, 12 years ago. Big change. Total makeover, what it's called. And I appreciate that. I hope that you can keep it up, no matter the cost. The money comes somewhere from somehow, and you shouldn't care about how much it costs to do this, as long as it's well done like it's been doing lately. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, I bring it back to the council for recommendation.
I make a motion that we approve item 5.2, the resolution to approve fees and fee waivers for facility rentals.
A second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 5.2.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Cruz?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6.1, resolution approving the renewal of the current animal control services agreement with the City of Oakdale for fiscal year 2014-2015.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, the City of Riverbank has contracted with the City of Oakdale for animal control services for a number of years, and that partnership has proven to be very effective and provided a high level of service for our community within our budget constraints. This evening, we have representatives from the City of Oakdale here, as well as the Oakdale Shelter Pet Alliance, which we're very appreciative to have them here. And this evening, Ms. Norma Torres Manriquez will be providing you an overview of the contract being proposed for this fiscal year and highlighting some of the minor changes that we've made to improve operationally and to focus on what makes the most sense based on the relationship and the working operations of this partnership. Ms. Norma Torres Manriquez, thank you. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you. I'm the one with the longest last name. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So today, again, we're going to be looking at our Animal Control Services Agreement. And we are going into our 5th year. It's been since 2009. And like Jill said, it's actually been a good working relationship, and our community has benefited from being closer and having the services that we have now. We only have a handful of changes. They're all minor, and we're going to go over those briefly. We have a total of 5, and I was allowed to show you some of the dogs and cats that are available right now at our shelter. We have a total of 5 changes that we'll go over briefly. Starting with the first change, and that is in section 1.2, and that section will be removed. That section discussed Riverbank having our Animal City shelter building, and that is at the wastewater treatment plant. Unfortunately, that building is now uninhabitable. We have had a rodent infestation, and for the safety of staff and the animals, it is no longer going to be available. In previous years, we had used that for overflow or when we had an outbreak of kennel cough. That gave the Oakdale shelter a chance to disinfect and clean up and bring the animals over and be treated and get rid of that quickly. The other section that we'll also be looking at, a small change, will be section 2.4, and Tom shared with me that this is standard language that will be included, but both of the city managers will be able to make some changes up to $5,000, minor if we need to. The third change is section 2.9, and this is the section that is removing one of the quarterly reports. We do get quarterly reports from Oakdale in that. Those include information on our intake, our outtake. It also includes number of calls for response, actual time worked to respond, emergency calls. But the one that is going to be removed is actually specifically looking at actual time that it takes to resolve a service call. And that's just because it depends on the service call. And it's just hard to quantify when you have the follow-up calls and making sure that it's resolved. The fourth section here is section 2.10, and that is removing language that will clarify who will be taking care of dangerous animals, vicious and potentially dangerous animals. In the previous years, this has been a combination between Riverbank Police Services and Oakdale, and we are clarifying that is now going to be Oakdale. Our last change that we will be looking at, a great benefit to us, but it is in the actual attachment A2. This attachment actually had that we would pay a fee on an emergency call when animals are sheltered over 5 days. And that was a fee of $25 per day after the 5th day. And then once it went into the 6th day, there was another fee, about $15. Oakdale has agreed to remove these fees, so that's a win for us. I'd like to point out that none of these changes will affect the total cost. And also pointing out that this has been the cost for at least the last 2 years. And all of these items, I did include all of the items so that you can take a quick glance at them. But none of these will be affecting the cost. It's $152,045, and they've all been budgeted. The other thing that it's not going to affect, these changes will not affect our service hours, which we currently have an officer for 32 hours a week. They respond to calls, they respond to loose and roaming, and basically do a lot of education once they're here during the 32 hours. We also will maintain the emergency on-call, so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If we need them to come out to respond to an emergency, that remains the same. So we would like to recommend that the agreement with the City of Oakdale be renewed for the fiscal year 2014-2015 with the terms and conditions that were reflected in the agreement. Today, also, we do have the opportunity to introduce the 2 new officers that will be working with us. Oakdale has had several promotions, which is great for them, but we have had a change in officers. So joining us tonight, and I'll have them come up so you could actually see, and our people in TV land could actually see the faces that will be in town, is our Riverbank Animal Control Officer is Jeffrey Worley. And again, you will see him 32 hours a week in Riverbank. And the other face that we definitely want you to get familiar with is Beth Crowley, and she is actually Oakdale Animal Officer. She will be taking care of Oakdale, but both of these, they do help each other out, so when one is not available, they will come out to Riverbank, so they cover each other. And they're really hard to get, so I'm really glad they were able to join us today, and you actually get to see their faces. Also, Sergeant Joe Johnson is here, and he oversees animal control. The one that's not here tonight, and the last member of this team, is Danielle Merritt, and she's actually at the shelter, and she's our statistic guru, and she's just a whirlwind out there. So if you get a chance to come out and see her, she's the one that's going to help you out at the shelter. So if I'll let our officers just introduce themselves again quickly, and if you have any questions for them. It's been a great working relationship, not to mention to be able to have the volunteer group that has been such a strong supporter. So I have to plug in the last slide, that if anybody is interested in saving a life, please adopt a shelter pet.
You have a horse out there? I see a horse.
Yes, well, that is one of the...
That's a quarter horse.
That is one of the just blessings that we have working with these amazing people, because they have established relationship with so many rescue groups. So yes, there are horses. They're not physically at the shelter, but there is a working relationship with a rescue group.
Hi, again, I'm Jeffrey Worley, officer for Riverbank. I'm here 32 hours. Did you guys have any questions for me?
I have none, but welcome aboard, and thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I am Beth Crowley, and I'm full-time 40 hours a week at Oakdale Animal Control. And I do cover for Jeff when he's off, and he covers for me, so be around here a lot. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Beth is actually related to one of our officers here in Riverbank, so that's going to be really helpful. She was telling us she got a call this morning, there's a dead animal.
They're easy to control.
Right in the middle of...
Any other questions?
Norm, I have a question. Is that Buddy?
That is Buddy in the corner. He is a Chihuahua, and right next to him, that's Roy. He is a Chihuahua. Tucker, all of these animals, again, need homes. And the little guy on the far left-hand corner, that is Carlos. And, I mean, they all deserve a good home, but they have been there for quite some time. So we don't want them kennel crazy. We want them adopted.
One more question. When we have a cow or a sheep, sometimes that gets out of their fenced-in area, is it the shelter that responds, or should we call the shelter, or are we calling the sheriff department?
I'm going to let the officers who handle these calls go ahead and give you the specifics, but yes, we do call.
Okay.
Okay, if they are in the city of Riverbank, we will definitely respond. If someone calls our dispatch, they will confirm if the animal is in the county or is in the city. If for whatever reason the county can't make it, say there's 3 horses in the middle of Patterson Road, we're still going to go. Okay? So, yeah, so if it's in the city, we had a cow in the city that I was looking for right in Crossroads the other day. It wasn't there when I got there. How we got there, I have no idea. But yes, we will respond for cows, sheep,
No, it's not
horses,
mine.
goats.
Horses.
No, we've had to call several times, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, we will respond
Okay.
to farm animals.
Thanks.
That'd be a sight.
It has happened.
You know, that is
Other questions or comments?
That is a great question, because it's an educational component for us that we do call dispatch, and dispatch is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, I bring it back for action on item 6.1.
I just want to say thank you for your service. It's really appreciated. You've done an outstanding job, the whole organization, so thank you. And I also would like to make a motion that we approve item 6.1.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve and a second on item 6.1.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Campbell.
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 6.2. Item 6.2, LRA Public Outreach Plan.
Yes, Mayor, members of City Council, this evening we are presenting an overview of a potential public outreach plan for your review and feedback and comment as appropriate. This is a strategic plan objective, one of the objectives that was established in our March 3rd session, and this time Ms. Debbie Olson is here to present the overview.
Good evening, council members, authority members. Appreciate you giving me time to talk about getting the word out on the Riverbank Industrial Complex. Tonight, the purpose is, as you asked for in the strategic planning session, to kind of create a conceptual framework, and I think, for my part, agree on some of the assumptions we've made for effective outreach to a variety of audiences, the things that we need to accompany and support the actions and the decisions that we're making at the former Riverbank Army ammunition plant. And they could have concerns with business activities or environmental cleanup or the conveyance or budgets themselves. This will not, though, provide you with a timeline, with a complete plan on what we will send out, what we will do when, or the kinds of products that we might use, or the cost of those things. Again, this is an overview, and quite frankly, I brought examples of things that we've done in the past for the public to look at, or if the authority members would like to review some of those as well. So let's get this show on the road. So it is a long path. It's a lot of work, and it's sometimes a stretch to get people interested in what we're doing, because let's face it, we all have busy lives. But the purpose is essentially to inform individuals and organizations about the project, its goals, activities, and progress, and to provide opportunities for participation in the decision-making process. Now, quite frankly, most of those opportunities for decision-making happened early on in the project, but that doesn't mean there aren't decision points that we come to that we want to hear from the public. And so I want to make it clear that the public is always, we're grateful for their input, and I'm particularly grateful, for example, the input that I received from the Community Advisory Committee was invaluable in making many decisions. The benefits are clear. Greater involvement in the planning process and decision process. I think a better informed public certainly leads to better project outcomes. There's no doubt in my mind. So my staff and I sat down and just thought about what kind of goals do we want in a public outreach plan, and involving the entire staff, since we're all sort of banging the drum beat. Let's make sure we're all banging it in the same direction and with the same sort of chorus. So we want to, of course, increase public awareness and support and provide information, provide education,
greater involvement, as I said, in decision-making process, and provide a variety of focused outreach activities for focused things that we're doing. Increase public trust, certainly, and increase transparency, reduce misinformation and fear, and provide effective internal communication. Quite frankly, that's something that's always forgotten. We need to be communicating within the city so that there's no uncomfortableness or misinformation that we're sending out as well. So, we looked at the audiences we have, and my goodness, we have a variety of audiences all over the place who are all asking for information, but often different kinds of information. So again, there certainly isn't an outreach plan that you just have one size and you do that and you're going to reach all these audiences. These are only a few of those that we need to speak with or ask to listen. So some of the basic outreach tools that we've been using and that we intend to continue using, and these are very traditional, of course, LRA council and/or council meetings where I have the opportunity to talk like this. Community Advisory Committee, as I said again, it was an excellent opportunity to outreach. Public announcements, those can include ads in the paper, public announcements in online newsletters and things like that, workshops, static slides and presentations that we have out in the public or that we have given to other individuals to provide an avenue for information giving, posted notices that we have out front, at the post office, at our site, fact sheets, informational meetings that we have done, open houses. I do public speaking engagements at community groups and national conferences, and of course press releases to kind of get some media attention as well. But aside from that, we've used web-based outreach, and we'd like to continue and maybe grow this with, of course, the LRA and the City of Riverbank website. We do have a web-based feedback loop on our site. It has not a lot of people looping back in because most people are still picking up the phone and calling us and asking us questions. But we do have that opportunity. Anybody that asks for information, we put on a listserv or a news feed or an email chain and do send things out to them. We do a variety of e-newsletters, one for tenants, and some for the public, some for congressional members, so different audiences. Again, we use different ways to get in front of them. We have done targeted emails and we've done targeted postcards. We have social media pages. We have both a Facebook page and a Twitter account, but I have to be honest, once we lost a couple of our interns that were very adept at that, it tends to fall through the cracks if you don't tweet a lot. And video presentations, again, things like the Pentagon coming out and filming a documentary and putting it on their Pentagon Loop. So I put up a few of the things we've done. You may remember we did a postcard invite to Riverbank residents for an open house, a couple of newsletters there, one for inside the plant, one for outside, our website, public notices, a smattering of print media, and informational sheets that we have available. Copies of all of these are in our little sample folder here. And we have some upcoming opportunities for public outreach that we would like to utilize any number of these any number of these tools. We have a workshop to discuss the Memorandum of Agreement to the EDC, to the Economic Development Conveyance Applications. We're anticipating a public hearing on the signing of the MOA, public forums to discuss the final conveyance, workshop on the early transfer and taking on the remediation of some of that contamination, what it would mean, let the public understand what that means. LRA quarterly budget review and approval, we come before you with that. And of course, an environmental services cooperative agreement, the second one with the Army, will be coming up, and we think that's another great opportunity to inform the public about what's going on out there that will benefit the community as a whole. So we have, again, outreach, education, a feedback loop that we're looking for more participation. And if we can just utilize some of these and keep at them, we believe that we have a strategic goal that's achieved here. That's it. I wonder if there's any comments or anything you'd like to see that we aren't doing.
With the conveyance, let's say the conveyance, we expect it to be this calendar year something, correct?
This fiscal year.
This fiscal year, not this calendar year.
I am not sure that they can get through the gauntlet of the environmental regulatory agency's approval, the governor, and the Department of Justice in 6 months. I kind of tend to think that everything's a little bit longer, people are a little slower, staffs are a little smaller. So this fiscal year is my best guess.
I thought it was going to be turned over to us in 2010 or 11 or 12.
Well, I do believe we'll have
13.
conveyance of the undeveloped property this year. That I absolutely believe, yes.
All right. Okay, whatever conveyance, we have to do something before that, so we have to plan earlier to do some type of a step conveyance process that we can put out to the public.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and that's you're making the point where you're making the point that I like to make. This has got to be a multiple step process, because once we make a decision, people will remember the decision, but they may not really remember being involved in that decision. So I think multiple opportunities where we have a workshop, a forum, a public hearing to talk about all these things. Maybe we ourselves are sick of hearing about it, but there's somebody out there that we just haven't caught their attention yet, perhaps, and we need to let as many people as possible know what the process is, and that we're working it right, and that we're being very transparent, and the benefits and actually the pros and cons. Is that
Yep. I also have a question on comments. Have we as the LRA made any response to the North County Corridor for the Army Corps of Engineer? Is that an appropriate?
We have not made comments on behalf of the Army Corps of Engineer. The comments that we have
Only
made
from
have
the
been
city.
on this behalf of the city.
Okay. Just thinking. Comments, questions?
Yeah, I just had some. Debbie, thank you for this. I think it's very, very valuable to have a plan out and kind of have it laid out. I really appreciate reading through that and saying, yeah, all right, we need to have public engagement with this. I think it's really important to move forward, and I think there's a lot of communications out there for a lot of folks. And just as you stated, you may say it over and over again, and you think we hear it a lot, but there's still folks that think, oh, this is out there. I don't think we can do enough of this kind of education. So I really appreciate you making an effort in that and really making it a priority. Thank you.
Yeah, we have in the past several years put money in specifically for marketing and outreach. We used it last year specifically for strategic planning, but we have set aside funds that we're earmarking for the upcoming sort of march through the conveyance process and public hearings and workshops, bringing our attorneys back out, bringing the Army here to talk to us. And I think we're doing, in my opinion, the best we can with a small staff and tight resources. But thank goodness that we have good news that the media is picking up and doing some of the heavy lifting for us. So I appreciate our media avenues for helping us get the word out as well.
One thing I did like was, I think it was October 2011. It wasn't a haunted hayride, but it was close. If we, you could do something else like that.
Haunted hayride on the site?
That's right. Shake out the old ghost.
We could give everybody a pigeon trap and have them catch pigeons for us, because we're having a little outbreak right now. I don't know what it
Animal
is.
Control would appreciate that.
I guess everybody that comes gets a souvenir pigeon to take home.
Doesn't play as well as the haunted hayride, I guess.
Sorry.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there any public comment on this item? It's a non-actionable item, but seeing none, I bring it back. By consensus, we do accept the plan, and we'll look forward to more detail and execution. Thank you very much. Item 7, consistent of 7.1, staff comments.
Yes, Mayor and Members of City Council, I wanted to bring a couple of items to your attention, and then actually, after I'm done, I'd like the Chief of Police to provide a little update on what happened over the 4th of July weekend for the council. One is, you may have noticed over the course of the last couple of meetings that we haven't had the warrant registers as information items. And it's been a combination of end of the year, it's the end of the year, we've been short-staffed, and just the normal transition. However, it has been extenuated by an upgrade to our upgrade to our computer system that is not compatible with our finance system. And you may recall during the course of the budget hearings, one of the things that is on our radar screen is a very outdated finance system. And what we're finding as we are using our equipment to the very end. We are only upgrading in many cases until we absolutely have to because we can't get parts, the software is not developed or not supported anymore. And so as we're going through this, we're finding all of our operational systems are so old that when we upgrade one thing, it's causing problems with another thing. And now with these new upgrades, we cannot automatically produce those warrant registers. So we're in the process of doing that manually. Our Director of Finance, Maricela Garcia, has been working diligently with the software company to see if we can get a fix. At this point, they have said no, so we're looking for some other alternatives. But when we talk about some of these outdated systems, this is what we're hitting. In addition, with just even the equipment at this dais and then providing the information to the public in terms of what happens here at the council meetings, we have one thing that goes bad. We're trying to make everything work, and it complicates things. So we're looking at an overhaul of the entire system to prevent some of those glitches as we move from really old stuff to new stuff, and to how do we make that more compatible. So we're trying to find what makes the most sense from a financial perspective as well as from an operational perspective, and make it as effective as possible. But I did want to just kind of highlight that we're dealing with some of those things, including this evening's meeting. And then actually, I also wanted to let you know, we've been getting some questions about the cheese and wine and how is the planning going for the cheese and wine. And so we're in the process of scheduling a formal update for the City Council with the event organizer that we have hired. And so that will be coming up at a meeting, if not, most likely one of the meetings in August. So we're working on that. Sue is under Sue's direction. And then at this time, I'd like to hand it over to our police chief.
Good evening. Well, I'm not sure if you're making specific reference to any particular incident, but I'd like to report that, to my knowledge, I'm not aware that we had any significant incidents for 4th of July. So I was hoping you didn't have any surprises for me.
No, that is the point.
We had some extra cars that we staffed that evening in anticipation that we might have, a critical incident or something more complicated than usual. But in speaking to the sergeant that was on duty that night, he said that there's really nothing to report. There were aerial fireworks, legal fireworks in town, which we don't like to see. That's fairly common throughout Stanislaus County now, and although we'd like to see that reduced, we feel fortunate that we didn't have any structure fires or anything of that nature. So we did have some other typical calls for service, but nothing out of the ordinary. And while I'm up here, may I make comment about the bicycle rodeo?
Sure.
Okay. I'd just like to thank some of our council members for being involved and being catalysts for that, as well as sponsorships from Target and other involved parties that made it all possible. I know we had OTS grant funding that provided for our bicycle helmets. We had approximately 70 children that went through the bicycle rodeo program. And we issued about a dozen bicycle licenses for free, and then at the end of the evening we raffled off 3 bicycles to 3 overjoyed children. I had to catch up with a couple of them later. We only had one on hand at the time, but I did make some phone calls and they doubled back and grabbed their bikes, and they were elated. So anyway, thank you for helping facilitate that.
How many helmets did you give out that night?
Approximately 70.
70 helmets?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was impressive. It was cool. After a little while, I was noticed, I'm like, they are giving away helmets, and all those kids were wearing them. It was really a cool thing to see.
Chaotic at first. We had to kind of find our groove. It was good chaos as opposed to bad chaos, which we normally deal with. So we were we were thrilled to be involved, but we finally got it ironed out and got our process down and cycled a lot of children through, which we're grateful for.
Thank you.
Chief, on the fireworks, I have a long letter from a resident I'll provide to you about illegal fireworks, and I thought they had called the police services and got no response.
Well, I'll have to take a
I'll
look
give you
at
the
it.
letter.
Okay, thank you.
It was extremely long.
So overall, though, we had very few incidents in the city. It was very quiet, and I actually spoke to the watch commander on Thursday morning, and I said, I'm sure I'm going to be talking to you a lot over the course of the weekend. And as it turns out, there were a couple things Thursday, and that was it. And so that was really good news for the city, and very grateful for that. And just to finish up, I did want to comment on some of the comments made by Mr. Bermudez, and that in terms of a spokesperson for the senior community, I hear each one of you talk about the seniors, and I don't know if the council wants to choose somebody specifically for that topic. I just wanted to let you know that I hear all of you talk about the seniors, and we do endeavor to try and respond to that, and I think Sue's and her work is trying to work with Councilmember Barbara Martinez and others in terms of we providing the services, particularly those with the lunch and the golden agers. In terms of the street signs, there are times where, as staff, we are busy doing tasks and we're focused on something, and it really does help when members of the community bring items to our attention. And so I just wanted to use this opportunity that for the public that's listening and for all of you, as you're talking to people, please encourage them to let us know. Sometimes we miss things because we see it all the time. I would liken it to, we know when you're in your home and everything's great, but when you have a party, all of a sudden everything's a neon that needs to be done. And so we're trying to get work done, so sometimes we don't notice it until somebody brings it to our attention. So we really do count on the community being our eyes and ears. And finally, the alley, I know that our Public Works Superintendent Michael Riddell was taking notes on that. We've talked about it in the past and have that monitoring. Carl's Jr. did pay for their portion of the upgrade, so hopefully we'll be able to see that entire alley upgraded at some point in the future. They did pay for that activity. And that concludes my staff comments at this time.
Jill, if I may, I'm sorry you didn't get my email.
Oh, I apologize. I apparently did not consider
We have an exciting time happening here.
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, go ahead.
Once again, it's the November 4th general municipal election for Riverbank. We have 2 seats that will expire this year, and that's Councilmember Cal Campbell, Councilmember Leanne Jones-Cruz. The nomination period will begin this coming Monday, July 14th, and will end 4 weeks later, Friday, August 8th. If either council member does not file papers by August 8th, then that's going to open up the nomination period for an extended 5 days, so it will close on Wednesday, August 13th. And that's if you do not file papers by August 8th. All business for the elections will be conducted during normal business hours that are posted. And of course, to better manage my time and the work that I'm responsible for, I do require appointments, so please give me a call. And a special note, and it's very important, is that anybody interested in taking out papers for the nomination period, you must be a registered voter at the time you request your papers. And we do verify that you're a registered voter at the time that you're taking out your papers. And any future updates or any more information that you're interested in, our website has an elections page, and I will keep that updated as we go along through the process. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Annabelle.
Council comments? Councilmember Jones-Cruz?
Yeah, just a couple items. I got a chance to kick off my Independence Weekend with attending a naturalization for U.S. citizens that was actually conducted here locally. It was a pretty cool thing to do. It was very patriotic. The congressman was there, and they had about 101 people receiving their U.S. citizenship on the Wednesday before the 4th of July. And it was done here in Modesto at MJC, and Barbara Martinez and I, Councilwoman Barbara Martinez and I got a chance to attend that. We even ran into a couple Riverbank citizens that received their U.S. citizenship. It was just a really neat ceremony to attend and made me feel really proud. So that was one thing I wanted to share with you. The other thing is, if you got a chance to read in your water bill that the fire department is loaning life jackets, and I just want to throw that out there, that is an awesome program that's going on, and I think more folks need to take advantage of that. We need to make sure we have our families and kids and folks safe on the river, especially with the heating up and the holiday season that just passed. We really need to kind of move forward and make sure we get the word out that that program is available. You can borrow life jackets, you return them, and what a great thing that is. Thank you.
Councilmember Barbara Martinez.
Again, I want to say thank you to Chief Kiley and his staff for helping us at our bicycle rodeo and health and safety fair. We had also about 18 service organizations that helped us out with activities and giveaways to the kids, so a fun time was enjoyed by all. And as Councilmember Jones-Cruz stated, the immigration ceremony was very, very meaningful, not to just some of I should say all of the candidates, but also it was meaningful to the both of us. We shook hands of 101 candidates, and just to say thank you and welcome to the community. And of those candidates, they were representative of 37 different countries. So I just thought that was awesome to mention that too. And I also rode the ACE train to Santa Clara. This train, the purpose of it was to inform and reinforce the importance of reducing gas emissions in our environment, and to consider the train as a comfortable, less stressful alternate means of transportation. And I mean, it was very, very relaxing. And I hope everyone gets out to enjoy our beautiful parks, and remember to use sunscreen and to be safe in the water. Thank you.
Councilmember Tucker.
I just want to briefly say I'm so thrilled to hear that there were no incidents or of any significance anyway over the 4th of July weekend. I was hoping and praying for that, and so my prayers were answered. That's awesome. And congratulations to everyone on the bicycle rodeo. Chief Kiley, that's awesome news. It sounds like a wonderful event, and I'm sorry I missed it.
Vice Mayor.
I just want to thank all the citizens that have come to make the Wednesday night's farmers markets quite successful. Likewise, we showed a movie last week for the first time, and it was well received. We had over 150 people in the park watching the movie Frozen, and it was even got a little chilly. By the end of it, we still had 100 left, and it just seemed kind of like old times, almost like a drive-in without the cars. So I would encourage people to keep coming out. There are things happening out there at that park every Wednesday night.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Bermudez. There are a lot of street signs that have to be replaced. We've talked about that, and I know it's in progress, and we'll continue on. We should get a warranty, and that must have at least 10 years warranty on those things, not 30 days. When as soon as it hits the sunlight, boom, it's gone.
It's true.
Some of us are senior citizens up here, so we represent senior citizens. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit more what you mean by a committee. I'm trying to do some change outside of the city council, but it does affect the city with the school system. They have the school lunch programs, and during the summer there's a new program out there which I'll be helping to start hopefully in Riverbank, is a school lunch program continuation for the library, and that will help reinforce the learning for students during the summer, all the issues that they have. If they don't read during the summer, they lose 6 to 8 months worth of their previous knowledge in math and in reading. So hopefully that will be next summer, so we'll look forward to that. And during that, the talk today with Mr. Bermudez, when he was speaking, I was thinking that could be a continuation or an extension at the community center for the seniors to get with the youth. So, but that's something that is outside of city council, okay, not taking staff time, except for Sue's. And we'll see what we can do. Truly am looking forward to the results that are coming on up in the demographics that could provide some type of a solution for district elections, and I hope everyone in the community understands that we need to consciously take steps to move towards this. So, with that, meeting adjourned.